Welcome to Fast Forward Newsline. My name is Michael Welch, and on today's installment, I'm joined by CKUW contributor Susan Huebert. Susan Huebert has also written for the Community News Commons and the CBC. Thank you for joining me, Susan Huebert.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here.
Now, I understand you've brought us a story about fair trade. Now, I'm wondering if you could maybe explain that concept for our listeners. We've heard it a lot in social justice circles, but maybe you could just expand on precisely what we mean by that.
Well, sure. Fair trade is basically the idea that the bulk of the money for products like coffee, tea, even soccer balls should go to the producers rather than to the middle people who sell the balls here in North America or sell the coffee and tea here. So it started, well, I guess the idea has been around for a long time, but it basically started in the 1950s when a worker with the Mennonite Central Committee decided to help some of the women of South America to sell some of their crafts in North America. So that eventually turned into self-help crafts, which became 10,000 villages. And it's grown since then, and now there are various other fair trade networks as well.
So it's interesting because I know I'm familiar with the concept in terms of chocolate and coffee, but you were just mentioning soccer balls. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, sure. In terms of soccer balls, about 70 to 80% of balls are made in Pakistan, which regularly uses child labor. So fair trade soccer balls are ones that don't use child labor and that make sure that everyone has a fair wage and that they're paid basically what their work is worth, not the least that the company can pay to them. And so it's also products like rice, where workers are quite routinely abused, and then other products, even gold and flowers as well. Apparently a lot of the flowers are produced with dangerous chemicals and other things like that make it hard for the workers. And so the fair trade market is expanding to all kinds of different products that never used to be in that market.
I guess one would think that in order to make those sorts of concessions to make sure that workers are paid appropriately and that there's less of these environmentally toxic effects, that there would be a rather huge markup. Is fair trade viable?
I think it is. It is more expensive than buying the regular mass-produced kinds of things, but I think it depends on. It might not take the whole market, but at least if it takes a larger share of the market, that will help to reduce the problems for the people who are producing those goods, and also, I think, help the people locally, wherever they buy them, to know that they're helping the environment and helping the people overseas rather than, or even in North America, rather than exploiting them. So it's more expensive, but probably worth it.
Okay. And I hadn't realized that we were going back to the 1950s with this concept, but it's very interesting that it's taken off as far as it has. When we talk about fair trade, then, are we talking strictly about dealing with countries in the global south?
It does tend to be mostly that, but fair trade could even apply to other goods as well. And I guess something related to fair trade also is buying locally. So that isn't necessarily fair trade, but it's also the same idea that you know where your food or where your products come from, rather than some anonymous manufacturer. If you buy locally, then you know the farmer who's producing the corn, and you know the people who are producing whatever it is that you're buying. So there's an app, a computer app that can help people with that as well. It's called the Local Frequency.
Okay, so we're talking locally. Is this just Winnipeg?
I guess Winnipeg and the area around here, so that it's not necessarily precisely in Winnipeg, but people know that their goods haven't traveled all the way from Florida to New Brunswick to Inuvik to Winnipeg just to get onto their tables.
Okay, so this app sounds like it's a very recent innovation then.
Yes, I think it is quite recent, but it's growing. Various businesses in Winnipeg are taking part in it, and it's becoming a larger and larger thing.
So how give me an estimate about how many businesses are participating in this?
I think it's now about 25 businesses, and there are, if you get the app and use that to order your goods or to buy them, then you can get a 3% discount on whatever you bought. So that's definitely an incentive for people to use that rather than just going out and buying whatever from the store.
And could you just give me some quick examples of some of the more popular items that are being the advantages that coming from this app?
Well, I think some of it is that a lot of it is artisans and bakeries and places like that, small businesses. So you're supporting small business rather than mega stores, and also you're working with places that use local products, so you're supporting the economy, and that returns more money to the economy here in Manitoba, which is helpful for everyone.
Okay, so some very impressive innovations then. I don't know if there's anything on the horizon that you can comment on with regard to fair trade, but this all certainly seems very, very fascinating.
Well, yes, it's very interesting to see what's happening with fair trade, and I'll definitely look forward to see what's coming next with it.
Okay. Susan Huebert, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much as well.
So you've been watching Fast Forward Newsline, a fresh edition comes your way periodically in this little box. As well, it appears around 8:15 every Wednesday morning on CKUW's People of Interest. We would like to thank the Government of Canada, the Social Justice Fund of Unifor, CKUW, the Community Radio Fund of Canada, and for all of their generous support. Find out more about the Fast Forward series by subscribing to the podcast, greenplanetmonitor.net. My name is Michael Welch. Bye for now.